to the cloud. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming. Welcome to a special Wednesday night. We usually do this on Saturdays. But we got a special Wednesday night. For anybody that doesn't know Jim Schumann, he's the EP on Abominable now. And which just came out today on is it Peacock and Hulu or
Peacock and Hulu?
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but you've been all around all over the place for a while, and you've had an awesome career. Yeah, and I don't know anything about your break-in story too, so I wanted to ask about that. Like, how did you first break in? How did you first get into the animation industry, etc.?
Sure. Welcome everybody. Thanks for taking time out to chat. It's always good to talk with folks that are in this crazy business and folks that want to get into this insane business. I actually started out real quickly. I was an intern, and I had got the Television Academy every year has internships, summer internships. And this was way back, I'm dating myself, this was way back in 1988. And they had offered an traditional animation internship at a studio in Burbank. It was Film Roman, and this was the old Film Roman when there was just like 12 people there. And so I had got that internship, came out in July of '88 it was 2 months for a 2-month internship. So it was a small studio. So I got it, they basically brought me in and sat me in a chair and said, you're going to be an in-betweener. And I started in-betweening we were doing Garfield commercials and Garfield specials and Tricks the Cat commercials. And it was a small enough studio where I was able to bounce around. And just like I said, started as an in-betweener. From there, I worked myself up to an animation assistant, and then a key animator, and then animation started kind of drying up a little bit. So I got into did storyboards, and then layout, character design, then made my way up from there into directing, and then supervising directing, and then from supervising directing into supervising producer. And then for the last 10 years, I've been an executive producer. So I was real fortunate to start off like way at the bottom, and just basically what's helped me now is seeing every step of the way in a production from script to post. And I wouldn't change anything. It was the best way to learn. It was like, here you got 2 months, and not all that happened in 2 months, obviously, but that was 2 months, and then my internship was coming to a close, and I had worked my ass off. And I went in to see the boss, and I asked him if he had any connections, because I didn't want to go. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, and we were in Burbank. And he asked me if I wanted to work there. And it was everything in my power to like act like I was like, yeah, that would be good. Where inside I'm just losing my
screaming,
just losing my marbles. Like I couldn't believe it, And so that's how it started. I was an intern and just came in, worked my butt off, and learned from the folks around me, and just like I said, just kind of worked my way up.
You had mentioned that animation dried out like in the early 90s. What was that like? Like, what was going on at the time there?
Yeah, well, here's the thing, man. And I think this is what Jim and me were talking about before we came on. Like this is like I said, I started back in '88, and this is a crazy business. It's a crazy business. And back then, just to kind of give you folks like kind of like a snapshot, back then there was 3 networks. There was ABC, NBC, and CBS. There wasn't even a Fox yet. And animation, for the most part, was Saturday morning. It was Saturday morning, and it was commercials, the TV special every once in a while, and features. There was feature. And I remember at the time, there wasn't a ton going on, because you only had 2 hours on Saturday morning. That was what you filled 2 hours, like, usually from, or 3 hours, 7 to 10, something like that. NBC started pulling back. So there was a limited amount of time, a little limited amount of space. And there was Disney was making films, I think they were, at the time they were the big one. There was very little kind of going on at Warner Brothers and some of the other studios. Once in a while they would have one. So, there would be up times, there'd be times when Saturday morning and animation was doing well. And then there was times where it wasn't. And there's these ebbs and flows. And I remember the first time it got a little dry, when I started in 88, like I said, 89, 90, and then Roger Rabbit came out. And before that, it was Oliver and Company, and it was just these little bumps that all of a sudden, when Roger Rabbit came out, it was like, oh my gosh, everybody wanted to do the Roger Rabbit look, and so that kind of bumped it. Then things got popular, commercials, TV shows, everyone wanted that look. So even back then, there was these ups, and then there's these contractions that went on. Animation gets popular, it starts making money, and then it's kind of drops off for some reason. The networks would go to live action shows, and then eventually the networks started pulling away from animation. And you fast forward now, what we have is streaming, right? It's like we're no longer connected to the clock. We don't have so many hours on a Saturday morning, or commercials or specials or TV shows. And at that time, there wasn't a lot of studios making content. It was Hanna-Barbera and Film Roman and, Disney TV, things like that. But where now, streaming, we're not tied to the clock. People can watch it anytime they want. And so anyway, to Jim, to get to it, it's that's what this business is. It's these ups and these downs, these ebbs and these flows. And it's kind of what makes it a crazy business.
I think in the grand scheme of things too, like back in the 90s, there were like 600 Animation Guild employees total. And I think maybe 2/3 of them were working at any time at the most. And now there's in upwards of 6,000 Animation Guild employees, and I think there's like 5,000 in active rotation. And there's just so much more opportunity, but
right now, no, it's the truth. So because just as like the last 8 years, like the last 9 years, going from 2013, 2014, when that big Netflix deal hit, when Netflix and teamed up with DreamWorks TV was formed. And
there was nothing before that. It was it was a huge deal that with DreamWorks, and DreamWorks started. And I think not a lot of people know that story, because a lot of people
that's how
came into
DreamWorks television started. You're absolutely right. Because before that, then you had some, before that you had, Fox got into it, some other studios, animation was becoming popular. And the other thing that you have to remember then too, CalArts was a feeder school. Rhode Island School of Design was a feeder school. Nobody knew about Cal State Fullerton, Cal State San Jose. Some of the Cal State Long Beach, some of the great, SCAD wasn't around. Back then, there was only a certain amount of schools that were feeding into the business. And like Jim said, there wasn't that many union employees. Whereas now, and you can, like we were saying, trace it back to that Netflix deal, where they basically just said, we want content. And there was a boom. And the thing that's changed the most now, particularly with the internet, is the instruction and the things that you used to have to go to colleges for, and used to have to go to art schools and animation schools for, you can get on the internet. There was a time when the US was the top. The top artists, everything, it's not knocking the other countries and where it came from, but as far as the talent pool, it was the top. Where now it's changing. The internet has changed animation with It's just amazing stuff and amazing artists coming from all over the world, you know, and the talent pool has gotten huge when these explosions happen for content, you know, and Netflix, they were asking, there were 72 episode orders, you know, which was unheard of, and they wanted 10 series. So there was this explosion. And the last 8 to 9 years, it was literally the second golden age of animation. You know, it was, everybody was working, you know, as an executive producer, and Jim knows this as a producer. It's hard to find people, you know, when everybody is working, it's hard to find people, you know. And so when you have somebody, when you know somebody, man, you hold on to them, you know, you keep your list, of people. And then what happens is because there's so much work, sometimes people get progressed a little too quickly. You know, you need a board artist, but this maybe, you know, so this person gets moved up and maybe they're not ready. I mean, that's how it was. It was just this glut of programming, and we needed artists. You need artists for it.
Mm-hmm. It seems a little bit that's also what happened with some of the streamers and some of the networks now, is like they expanded or ordered a lot of shows extremely quickly and then didn't necessarily have the pipeline infrastructure or the artist talent or the experience to make those. And it feels like a little bit of a contraction now.
Yeah, no,
because
there's
of that.
definitely, no, Jim, you're right there. And there is a contraction going on right now. And I can't tell you guys, like, like from the title of what Jim called this, what the heck is happening? There's a contraction going on, but I can tell you that these contractions, it's not going to be the last one that you guys are going to go through. You know, it won't be your first, and it won't be the last. It's part of the business, because if we take this Netflix thing as kind of like the sample, you know, for the longest time, Netflix just provided content. You know, they just wanted content. Then they decided they wanted to be their own animation studio and produce animation. And they were just throwing money around. I mean, they were getting quality people, but they were just hiring everybody and green lighting shows and just doing this, and this. And like Jim was saying, they didn't have a pipeline in place. And that's incredibly important when you're starting something up, a production pipeline. You can have all the great ideas in the world, but if you don't know how you're going to make those ideas, or who's going to make them, and who's doing what, you're really setting yourself up for problems. So they were hiring everybody, and then other streamers, you know, got into it, Disney and Hulu and just all these other ones, hiring all sorts of people, throwing all sorts of money, all these projects, hiring everybody. And then you have the pandemic hits, right? Now, who the hell would have thought animation would have been pandemic proof? You know, I mean, I had a guidance counselor in high school tell me, why do you want to get into animation? You know, and I think of that guy now, and it's just like, and you know, and then we all saw it, that all of a sudden all the live action folks wanted to get into animation. You know, they were pitching shows, and they were like green lighting shows and cutting deals with stuff, with talent. Not realizing that animation takes a while to make. You can't, you know, you can kind of, you know, South Park does a nice job with quick turnarounds, but that's the style of the show, you know. But what they, you know, I remember as an EP hearing stories of agents saying, you got to, you know, pitch animation. They were telling everybody, stand-up comics. I mean, everybody pitch animation. So we get through the pandemic, and the pandemic's over, and all of a sudden the companies, they look at the balance sheet, and they're seeing, you know, the effects of all these, you know, this move to spend all this money on all this content. And you know, one of the things that you have to, you know, realize is that yes, this is a craft, and what we do is art, and it's a craft, but there's also commerce to it.
Mm.
It's a business. It's an animation industry. It's a business. And because these people, didn't make the best decisions, okay, the chopping block comes along, and they start pulling shows. I mean, they just to save money.
Mhm.
It's to save money. And because of the various decisions they made and mistakes they made, um, the live action is starting to come back, and they've got to get the balance sheet down, and they start pulling all these shows, and they start laying off all these people. And in various stages, I know people, they were getting ready to go, and a show was greenlit, and they got laid off. I know people that were getting ready to mix shows. They had mixes
Mhm.
scheduled, and they pulled the plug on it. So it's scary. I mean, it's an odd contraction, but before, years ago, there'd be a contraction. Like, I remember being at Nickelodeon when it was just Fairly Odd Parents and Dora
Mhm.
was the only things going, and that studio was a ghost town.
Mhm.
And Jim, you're at Nickelodeon now. It's booming.
It's booming.
It's healthy. It's healthy,
Yeah.
right?
We've hired more people during the pandemic than we can fit in the building if
Right.
everybody came back to work immediately.
Right. So before, like early on, when I was talking about, because you only had so many networks, these contractions would happen as animation would kind of, something wouldn't be popular, or it would kind of ebb until something hit. When The Simpsons came along, boom, there was another one. It went off. Everybody wanted the next Simpsons,
Mhm. Mhm.
things like that. Now it's more of a contraction of, there's too much stuff. There's too much content. We have to pay for it. How do we not pay for it?
Mhm.
So you do have, and the big difference is now you have certain studios. It's very cyclical. Nickelodeon was in a downturn for a while, for a number of years, though. They're starting to, they're getting healthy again. DreamWorks was the place to be. Disney was the place to be. Disney's pretty healthy. Cartoon Network is taking a hit right now.
Mhm.
Again, it's very cyclical depending on what the market is, and it can be a little scary.
Mhm. Do you are you concerned for the long term? I mean, I feel like I know the how you're going to answer this, but are you concerned for the long term of animation?
No, no, I'm not. It's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. Oh, Michelle Fordham's here. Hi, Shell.
Oh, hey,
How are you?
Michelle. Hey,
Love Shells.
hey.
Yeah, Shell's great. Um, no, it's not going anywhere. It really isn't. It's going to be around, as long as there's kids, and now as long as there's adults, because there's
Mhm.
adult animation blocks.
Mhm.
Uh, if anything, there's going to be more of it, because now we're seeing, like, look at a show like Arcane. You know, that wasn't made here.
Mhm.
Technically, there's other shows coming from across the world now. So
Bluey's an
um,
Australian show.
yeah, I mean, again, there was a time when everything was, the production was done overseas, but it was made here. Where now shows and animated, it can come from other places.
Mhm.
So it's not, no, to answer your question, it's not going anywhere. We're just in a dip right now. We're in a dip right now. And there's things you can do, and we can talk about that. Like, okay, how the hell do I get through this dip? You know,
Mhm.
how do I prepare for the next one? There's things, we can talk about that if you want.
Yeah, I want to jump into that. I want to answer one last question, kind of about the mergers and acquisitions thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Do you feel like there will only be like three players standing, and there will be like the Disney style of show and the DreamWorks style of show and the Fox style of show, or
Well, even if there was, Morty, there's always those outliers, man. You know, there's always, like, look at South Park. Nobody saw South Park coming. You know, there was a time when South Park came along when there was kind of like studio animation, right? Until these two guys from Colorado did a short and it blew up, Ren and Stimpy, nobody saw Ren and Stimpy coming, and even now, particularly with the internet, with online stuff, there's so many creators out there. So to answer your question, sure, it may get there. We may get to where there's 3 players because who owns everything, but there's always going to be room. What I love about animation is we're kind of the weird kids, we're kind of the kids that, we all grew up drawing in our rooms and whatever. And when you let weird kids play, good things happen, so I think there'll always be that more, whether it comes from the US or where it comes from another country, they'll always be like, even now there's like these boutique, the boutique studios like Titmouse and Bento Box, they're, producing content. They may get sucked up by a bigger entity, but if they're smart, they understand the branding of that kind of individualism in animation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like Ashanti pointed out in the chat too. There's like Vivzy Pop, who's doing Has Been Hotel and Hell of a Boss, and like is doing it independently. And there are a lot of, and even the Bluey studio and Ludo like I think they did their pilot independently, and then they got picked up by like Disney and the Australian broadcaster, and like it seems like there was room for that. Like good shows or good content kind of defines the style of what a Nickelodeon show is. Like make a good show first, and then the network will buy it, and that becomes their style.
Yeah, no, for years, like no, you're right. For years, Nickelodeon had a style, Disney had a style,
and then Avatar,
Nickelodeon, and then Cartoon Network for years was the place that was kind of where they had different types of looking shows. Disney, if you look at, there was a lot of their properties, and then shows like, oh gosh, now like Big City Greens and what's the, oh God, it's slipping my mind. The one that's kind of like the X-Files with the 2 kids and the crazy uncle.
Gravity Falls.
Yeah, Gravity Falls. You know what I mean? So it starts to change, and you can go back to Star and the Forces of Evil. That it has an independent feel to it, and they latch on to that, and it's good, because for years there was like that's the one thing I thought DreamWorks does really well is, yes, they have their movies and they have their properties, but the series, there are some series based on the shows, but on the films, but they branched off into these, the Mighty Ones and some of the other stuff, and the newer stuff they're coming out now is like they're kind of getting a little darker, which is cool, a little more adult. Yeah.
And like can kind of before Avatar became a Nickelodeon show, like you would not think that would have been a Nickelodeon show at all.
No.
And then it like opened the way for more action stuff like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and
kind of that American anime. In a way. Someone asks, because I have the chat too open, Jim, if that's okay with you. No, go ahead, dude. I don't want to step on your toes.
No, go for it.
No, go ahead. I don't want to step on your toes.
Go ahead. You had a thread going. Go for it, sir.
Julie asked, how do I feel about the streaming atmosphere? Do you prefer it to before? I prefer it because it means more work for everyone, more projects, more things to do. The thing we're running into is there's a glut of shows right now. Like I go on to Netflix and some of these other ones, man, it's insane the amount of shows there are, and it's just like, it's almost like you don't have time to check them all out, so you kind of look for the ones that like that rise to the top, or the ones that, you hear people talk about or say, yeah, you gotta check this out, because sometimes I think like good stuff gets buried, when there's too much stuff.
Mhm.
Now, the thing I don't like about it, I'm sure everyone's aware of, our, it's the new media thing that was, where they said, wait a second, oh, this is new media, so we don't have to, hit certain union levels and pay like that, which is nonsense, because we're still doing the same thing, the same jobs, the same way. It's just being broadcast differently, So in terms of like more work for everyone, it's great, and more opportunity, it's great. But yeah, it's got its drawbacks,
So let's get a little into like how to survive in this atmosphere, how to
Yeah,
both career wise, and I guess like the mentally, to because a lot of our mentees, like a lot of mentees
sure.
and some of our the people that are attending, like haven't broken in or yet like are like trying
Trying
to
to
get
decide
on
if
that
they
treadmill.
maybe go to veterinary school
Yeah,
or
exactly, exactly.
well, alcohol helps.
Okay,
I'll tell you that. No,
cool.
no, I would like. Here's the thing, like we're what you have to kind of, you focus on what you can control, right? Um, so let's, like, right now we're kind of like we're saying we're in this contraction. You're in a contraction, but you're someone who wants to get into the business. Um, Focus on what you can control, because like I said before, the contractions aren't new. It won't be the first one. It won't be the last one. I've been through plenty of them. Uh, Michelle's been through plenty of them. Morty, you've been through them. It's just the way the business works. Uh, so trying to get in on a contraction is a little harder, but like I said, control what you can control. What does that mean? Um, Now's the time to work on your craft. Work on your craft. Like if you want to be a character designer, or if you want to be a prop designer, storyboard revisionist, storyboard artist, or even anything along the pipeline, production or post. If you're interested in sound effects or dialogue editing, like Michelle is, now is the time to work on your craft, because you do have the time to work on it. Ask people around you, ask your mentees or some of the other people, what you need to do, that you have to work on to get stronger. Somebody told me a long time ago to attack your weaknesses, and that means like really really look at yourself, really self-scout yourself and say, okay, I'm a little weak at this. I'm a little weak at the human form or the human figure. I'm a little weak at the designy type characters, or I gotta, I'm always avoiding drawing hands, or I'm always, attack those weaknesses and make them stronger. The other thing you should do, I got advice a long time ago, is you have to make sure you're not pigeonholing yourself into one style. Like, say if you're, again, a character designer, prop designer, storyboard artist, whatever it is, don't pigeon yourself into one style. Now, say you draw like big city greens. That's your favorite way of drawing. You've drawn it like as a kid your whole life, and that's the way you love to draw. That's your style. You're only hurting yourself. Okay. You have to make sure that you can adapt your style. You can adapt your talent. That means, because in this business, one day you could be working on a show like Star and the Forces of Evil. The next day you're working on a show like Big Nate, or you're working on a show with humanoid forms. You've got to be able to adapt your style, because if you can do that, and not just the style of your drawing, but if you're a board artist, you have to make sure you can adapt your visual style to different shows. Like some shows, very boxy, very flat, very graphic. And then you've got, a lot of CG shows. There's a lot of dimension to it. There's a lot of, the way you stage things. It's critical that you use this time to attack those things. You would do it anyway, even if you had a job, but use this time to do that, because that way you open yourself up to more opportunities, right? It doesn't mean you don't wait for that job where it's in your wheelhouse. Like, I know a lot of action guys that they love action, and a lot of action people. But by day they're working on, sugary dewdrop angels,
Mm.
but they can do it. you know, they can do it. It's really critical to do that. So that way you're, you know, and again, with designs, anything. So you're strengthening yourself to open yourself up to more opportunities, um, you know, for positions, for jobs, whatever it may be. And again, also, this is the time where you make those connections, you know, those social connections. Like when I was coming up, there was no social media, you know. I mean, you knew the people in your office, you met people usually at a bar or something, or some sort of social gathering for animation. You would take numbers, you know, take numbers, business cards, things like that. Your reputation was everything. So now is the time, you know, to use what we have, uh, to genuinely network and start building up your reputation. Because what you want to do, you want to put yourself in position so when things start going up again, right?
Mhm.
When things start going up again, if I look at a portfolio, or Jim looks at a portfolio, or you know, oh, okay, this person's this is someone we should talk to. You know, this is someone we should bring in. You know, whether it's entry level or what, someone, let's give this person an opportunity.
Mhm.
You know, um, the other one other thing is learn from this contraction to prepare yourself for the next one. You know, we had a good run. I mean, Michelle will tell you. I mean, DreamWorks was 8 years of just, you know, just solid, which was rare. You know, that was rare. Um, it'll happen again. It'll happen again. But use this time to prepare yourself for the next one. You know, I can tell you, save your acorns, man. You know, save
Mhm.
your money. Save your money. If you want money saving tips, Morty is like could write a book on this stuff. I mean, this guy is just so financially disciplined. But it's important. Like, don't fall into the trap, especially the, you know, the folks that are trying to get into the business of, if you get that job, you get the job and you're making decent money, you're making good money, and you can make a really good living in this business. But what I see a lot of times when people are first getting into the business is they think it's never going to end. You know, they think this is easy. I've got a job for a year, or I've got a job for 6 months. Save your money. You know, make sure you're putting money away. Put those acorns away to prepare yourself for these contractions. Those are the things that you can control, that, right? You can control that. You can control the networking with the people you know, because I can tell you, you know, I've been in the business, it'll be 34 years, and your most valuable currency is your reputation. The most valuable currency is your reputation. Like, I was on when we were doing when the show I'm on now, Bomb Rule. When I heard Michelle was going to be my dialogue editor, it's all I needed. That's all I needed.
Mhm.
No worries. You know, we'd worked together before. Yeah, Morty's the same way. Like, if I had a show and I knew Morty was out there, it's Morty's choice. You know, it'd be Morty. Hey, man, you want to do this or not? It's reputation, and this is where you start building your reputation. Your most valuable currency is your reputation, because if you have a good reputation and people know they can depend on you, and you hit deadlines and do good work, and you're not a diva, and you're not high maintenance, you will work. You will work. You will always, you know, you always have a job. Um, One thing I swear by to this day, I don't know if anybody else does this, but a real simple thing you can do when you do get a job, budget yourself on a 4-week month,
Mhm.
right? Because
Mhm.
there's 3 months, 3 or 4 months out of the year that have a fifth week.
Mhm.
But if you budget yourself on a 4-week month for the whole year, those months that have that extra paycheck, you bank it. You bank it. You put it into a separate account or something, rainy day account. If you get a job, say you get a job as a revisionist or a storyboard artist or a designer, whatever it may be, and you're doing it for 6 months to a year and you get a promotion and you make more money, first thing you should do your first paycheck is do something nice for yourself, you know. But after that, live on the old salary for at least 6 months.
Bank the difference.
Bank the difference. Bank the difference. You can't, like recently, you know, there was remember the strike talk back in October?
Yep.
Morty, right?
Oh yeah. Yep.
And people were asking about a strike fund. There is no strike fund in the union. There isn't. And there probably won't be. You know, you can control that, you know, start putting away for a strike fund, you know.
And I think we're going to do a whole SfA talk about the financials of being an artist in the animation industry too. So I think it's
yeah,
a pretty,
no, well,
pretty
as artists and creatives, we're notoriously horrible at it. You know, we struggle with it, you know, and it's important. It's just as, you know, it's important as you make your way up that you're able to save that money.
So for an artist that's like trying to break in, and like a lot of our mentees are not necessarily in school but are working like full-time jobs, but also studying storyboard on the internet, and you know, and working with our mentors, and a lot of people are just trying to gather whatever information they can from the internet to study storyboarding. So as somebody that's like on the precipice of that, or trying to break in and like continually like studying and doing storyboards and whatnot, do you have any advice for those people, for like trying to build a reputation with people that are like in the industry, or like build a reputation just as somebody reliable, even though they're not in?
Well,
in
that's
the industry,
how, you know, that's you do it. It's baby steps, you know, it's you know, it's small steps, you know, it's that old, you know, stacking wood analogy, you know, just stack one piece of wood at a time. So what does that mean? It's you know, the great thing is, like I said, because of social media and because of, you know, we can you know, click on someone's website and see their work. You know, LinkedIn, you can make connections. I've made connections with people, just, you know, who I met a girl last night. We had a thing at the campus for the show. And a girl came up to me and introduced herself and said she's trying to get into the business, and she's done this and she's done that. And we connected on LinkedIn today, you know. So you know, that's important, you know. More, you know, what you're doing here, Morty, you know, is important, especially with the mentors, you know. Connect with people, offer to show your work. Try to connect with production people. Like there's tests. What I tell people all the time is get a test. Just get a test from somewhere. You know, you have your own work, right? Like I said, make sure that work is, you know, there's a variety of styles in that work. Doesn't mean you have to do, you know, like 100-page boards or whatever. A section of something. A section of an action sequence, a section of a wacky, designy laboratory sequence, you know, something like, you know, that. And then again, with tests, try to find shows that have tests and just do the tests, you know. As far as I'm concerned, as long as if I see a test, you know, like if I'm looking at someone's work and it says test on it, I'm fine with it, you know. Because what I'm looking for is, can this person handle what the tone of the show is? I like looking at someone's personal work because, like I said, they might be into something else. They might be, you know, doing something else. I like to see that they have a variety. So for someone who's just trying to get in, it's taking those steps. You just got to get your foot in the door. You know, there's the internet right now is incredible to learn from, you know. Just get your foot in the door. You know, there's the official doorways of the recruiting website and things like that. drop somebody a line. Like I get, like I said, on LinkedIn, I get messages all the time. People just kind of checking in. Hey, I've heard about what you do. Make those efforts, make those small efforts.
Mhm. It seems like also keeping up with that. I think like we talked to an artist like Laurie Osborne, who's an artist a couple of sessions back, and I think I met her at like Lightbox in like
Yeah.
2018, and we connected, and like every 3 or 6 months she would like post a new storyboard sequence or send it to me or be like, hey, I just made this thing, check it out. And it was like kept going, sequence
Yeah.
after sequence, getting better and better, and
Yeah.
like
And
it
the thing
really helped her
to
stand out.
more to you, to make, to your point of, okay, how do I build a reputation when I don't have a job? But to your point, what I can tell everyone is don't flake.
Mm,
Like say this girl, you met this girl, and I met I met a girl, and we asked for something, or yeah, show me your work. Bang, next day,
mm,
she sent me something. You know, that goes a long way. That really does go a long way. That people, that follow up. Because that kind of thins the herd. That kind of, it tells you the people who are really, who really want it, who are really into it. Um, it doesn't mean you have to be a pain in the ass, like you're just like constantly email bombing people, but follow up. That goes a long way.
mm,
If I were to meet someone, say, yeah, let me look at your work. Okay, here's the corrections. Here's what I would do. Go ahead, take it back and show it to me in a couple weeks. Show it to me, in 10 days. Have it there in 9 days.
mm,
You know, um, that goes a long way.
mm. I remember watching Jerry Seinfeld's comedian documentary, and he was talking about like he was talking about the people that break in. And somebody asked him like, how can you tell who are the people that break in? He's like, yeah, the people that keep at it, that keep
Yeah.
making work, that keep trying and showing up every day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if
And
people have more questions, to keep throwing
and
them out
real
in the
real
chat.
quick, I saw somebody. They're right. Yeah. I mean, they're making animation all over the place. You don't have to make it here.
Mm,
I know there's some citizenship stuff. You know, and I get unions. I understand unions, but right now you want to get into the business. It's okay to start at a non-union shop. You'll get to a union shop at some point. You'll get to a union shop, and then, like right now, if there's a contraction, if I had to get work at a non-union shop, I would, because everything's debatable but math. you know and
mhm,
if my checkbook is saying this, or you got to do what you got to do. So um yeah, there's, Canada, it's crazy what's going on. Canada's going, Ireland, is looking for stuff. The playing field's wide open.
mhm. If anybody has any last minute questions in the end, I think we're wrapping up in the end here. Um, but Jim, do you have any more? Do you have any additional advice that you want to give?
um yeah, like I said, this is a crazy, like when I first started in this business, I was very fortunate, because the first studio I was at for 9 years,
Mm,
and everyone was telling me, like, this doesn't usually happen, you know, that um, animation artists move. You go from one job to the next. It's a very nomadic lifestyle. Um, and it's funny, when I go back east, at the time, I had friends, like, I don't know if anybody here's from back east, but it was just like, you went to a job and you stayed there for 30 years, you retired, and that was it. So whenever I would tell people, like, yeah, I got to find a job every 6 months to a year, they think I'm insane, you know.
mhm,
But it's the life we choose. Um, but it also makes it fun. It makes it, if you can navigate it, it makes it fun when you can jump from project to project. You know, when you can go from something that's action adventure to, and then jumping on to something that, preschool right now is really big. I mean, that's starting to pop. If you're looking for a bubble up, it's preschool right now. That's really good. It makes it fun. So, like I said, I mean, you just hang in there. If it's a crazy business, if you really want it, you can. It's an amazing business. You get to work with a lot of amazing people, a lot of great people. You just have to hang in there and always just constantly be working on your craft. Always be the solution person. I remember having a conversation with Morty about this. Like, if you're the solution person, you'll work. You'll always work. You're not the person who freaks out. You're not the person, that throws a fit or says, I want this much money, but you don't perform or you don't deliver. You got to be careful with that. The other thing is, look, man, we're coming out of 2 years of crazy ass shit. So take a beat, take a breath. We'll be okay. You're gonna be okay. This is our brains got rewired pretty good the last 2 years. Like I said yesterday, I was at an event at DreamWorks, and it was the first time in 2.5 years that I had been in the same room with my art director. And a writer, a couple of writers. But we made a show. We made a show. The show we did, Abominable and Invisible City, we all did from home. Even the crew at CGCG in Taiwan, we all did it from our homes, and we did it. So there's a resiliency there that we can lean on. For the folks that are trying to get into the business, if you really want to get into the business, you will. Just keep at it, man, and just keep at it. And take care of yourself too. That's another thing, talking about this last 2 years, mental fatigue is
rough.
It's a big thing.
It's been rough on everybody. Yeah.
Yes. And you have to acknowledge that. When we started Abominable, they asked me, whenever I start a show, that's always the conversation with the executives, like, okay, what's your biggest worry? And it's usually, can we get the talent? Can we do this? Can we do that? Can we, are we going to be able to do this? And I told them none of that. It was the mental fatigue. We've got to really be smart about the way we note, the way we meet, the way we talk, things like that, because people were spent.
And people have to reshift their whole lives. People are learning how to relive, especially people with kids too. Like, that's a whole new thing that they have to figure out.
So let's be, Shelbs knows, me and Shelbs work family first, that comes first. And we got through it. So long answer to a short question. It's just keep hanging in there, keep hanging in there, work on your craft, get your skills up, make connections. And if you want to get into it, you'll get into it.
Awesome. I think that's I think that may be a good place to end. I think we'll be good. Is that cool with you, Jim? We're good to go.
Yeah, I mean, we've got 5 more minutes.
Okay.
Anything else? You want to hit me with another question? I'm not looking at the chat anymore, Jim. You gave me the stink eye on that.
No. I didn't give you credit.
And I told Jim anything. If you guys want to ask anything, don't, how shitty was this job?
Yeah. Do you have any stories from transitioning from Nickelodeon to DreamWorks? Like what the culture was like different?
Yeah, no, that's actually a great question. Because each studio has it. When I went from Nickelodeon to DreamWorks, and Shelbs could probably notice this too. DreamWorks, I mean, they were a feature studio that was just starting to do TV, so there was a lot of layers there. There was a lot of different layers. Like for instance, at Nickelodeon, when it came time to casting a show or something, or said, it was like, let's get this person. You made the phone call, or hey, I need board artists. Let me just call them. Or hey, let's get this person. Where when we went to DreamWorks, there was departments for that.
Mm.
And I had to really adjust to that because I was very used to, like, I had, like
Yeah.
you have your,
You call up
I
your
don't,
friends directly. You were like,
yeah,
yeah.
and the people, that can do it, you say, hey, what are you doing? And it was just like, no, 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 we have people to do that. So we had to go through those steps
Mm.
for a lot of things, even though
Mm.
I would still call my friends.
You're like, call them first and then send
Yeah,
them to
hey,
recruiting.
you're gonna get a call. You're gonna get a call, but
Yeah.
just be quick.
And I think that was such an interesting time too, because so many of us were coming from Nickelodeon because like one particular person had a Rolodex and
Yeah, no,
went through
and
that
there's
Rolodex and
no,
was
you're
pulling
right, dude.
people.
There's shifts because then it was Netflix was the next place, and you
Mhm.
find that this is a big small community,
Mhm.
and you start seeing the same people, and that's how you get to know people and they get to know you. There was a big shift in Netflix, and now it seems like it's shifting, to back to Nickelodeon, and also, it is getting healthy
Mhm.
again, and Disney, and Netflix TV is going through a tough time right
Mhm.
now.
Yeah. And whenever, I don't know how it's been for you. I mean, I've only bounced between Nickelodeon and DreamWorks and then Nickelodeon again, but it's felt like, okay, I'm making a show here now in this environment, and this is
Yeah,
the people that I'm working for, and this is the culture, and okay,
yeah,
cool, all
yeah,
right. And like you're working like in the day to day on a production, you're working with artists for the most part, and you're working with the team that's building the show, and then interfacing with executives,
yeah,
uh, frequently enough, but relatively infrequently that like it doesn't affect your life that much. It's just like, oh, okay, this is this person, this is
yeah.
this culture.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
cool.
it's pretty much the same. It's just there might be, like I said, more layers, more cooks in the kitchen sometimes. But once you kind of navigate that, yeah, you're still, you still have the schedule, you still have a deadline,
Mhm.
you still have a deadline to hit.
You figure out the favorite coffee flavors at the particular coffee
Right.
machine, and it's like, oh, okay, Nickelodeon has salted caramel and Netflix has French vanilla. Cool.
Right. Right. And for the last 2 years, we had whatever was in the kitchen, whatever was downstairs.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. DreamWorks has snacks at 7 a.m. Nickelodeon has 7:30. Okay, cool.
Well, I remember in Netflix, the big thing was that I went over there for a meeting down in Hollywood, and there was that massive gourmet kitchen that had just, I mean, there was food everywhere. I
Hmm.
mean, every kind of food imaginable,
Hmm.
and it was like, little things like that artists think about. Free food.
Yeah,
we
yeah.
we've never changed. Whenever there was an opening, it meant free food. Let's go
Mhm.
to the opening. There's going to be
Yep.
free food.
Yep. Oh, there was a big
So
executive meeting that got out at 2 o'clock. That means there'll be
yeah,
sandwiches at 2:15 for the plebes like
yep,
us.
yeah. I remember bringing sandwiches from the recording booth out to when on Robot and Monster. I would take it because they wouldn't it'd be like a whole big
There'd
ring of
be a huge
sandwiches.
plate. Yeah, we had on
Yeah,
Robot and Monster. We had a text message chain
yeah,
for finding out when there was food in the kitchen for among
yep.
the board artists.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh, it's Subway or oh, it's Portos this week. All right, cool. And
Hmm.
big exodus. Um, yeah, cool.
Cool.
Anything else? Any other questions? I think we ate a lot of bacon on that show. It was
Yes,
it's a huge part of it.
yes.
Um, yeah. Well, Jim, thank you so much. This has been
Yeah.
amazing. I mean, you're always an inspirational person to talk to and just cool as fuck. And it's always a pleasure to chat with you, man.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you. Appreciate you asking me, and I appreciate you. Everybody taking the time to chat. And like I said, if there's one thing to leave you with, man, it's just hang in there. This stuff happens. This stuff happens. Uh, work on your craft, control what you can control. You know, and we'll get through it because next thing there's always the upswing. You know, I can tell you, like, don't freak out. Also, right now, this Morty, Shelds, as we get towards the end of the year, Thanksgiving, Christmas, it gets quiet. Things
Mhm.
things get quiet. People start, executives and the decision makers start checking out. Just it gets a little quiet, and then they start kind of shooting for the beginning of the following year. So,
Yep. It's quiet time.
well, yeah, man. Well, thank you,
Well,
thank you,
thank you.
sir. Yeah,
Thank you, man. And yeah, well, for anybody that was in a little bit later, we'll post this. If you check the SfA Twitter, we'll post this talk to YouTube probably at the end of tomorrow once I get the upload up. And yeah, hope you have a good rest of the night. Thank you for everybody coming.
thank you.
Thank you,
Good to
Jim.
see you.
Thank
Good
you
to
for your
see you,
time.
Morty. Good to see you,
Good to see you.
Shelks.
Good to see everybody. Thank you.